Thank you very much. And I must admit, I'm a little exhausted, as I would assume you're so even more, Minister Giroux, about litigating the carbon tax. So, like, I'm not here to play games. I'm just gonna say this like it is. So, if you just take the fiscal impact, it's 8 out of 10 Canadians are better, and they can quote me and they can put that on there. But the reality is, the truth of that is that once you include the economic impact, 6 out of 10 Canadians are worse off. Is that not correct, Mr. Giroux?
When we include the economic impact of the fuel charge and the output-based pricing system, it's true that the majority of households are worse off, and we are in the process of updating our analysis to try to isolate the fuel charge, the impact of the fuel charge itself.
Yeah. So when economic and fiscal impacts are combined, as you said, the majority of Canadians are worse off. That's correct. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Giroux. And one last thing on the carbon tax, and then I promise I'll move forward. But the government's own report appears to validate your conclusion. Is that correct?
That is our understanding, because they arrived at an estimate of a negative 0.9%, rounded to 1% of GDP when including the fuel charge and the output-based pricing system, where we had 1.3% in 2030. So that's in the ballpark, and that's very close for that type of analysis.
Yeah, and my apologies. I'm just reminded by my colleague that I need to get you actually on the record, even though I got a nod. So I'm just going to repeat my previous question. As you said in page 4 of your report, when you include both fiscal and economic impacts of the carbon tax, of the fuel charge, the majority of Canadians are worse off.
Our report also included the output-based pricing system, so it's not just the fuel charge, it's the fuel charge and the output-based pricing system. And considering the economic impacts and the fiscal impacts of both measures, yes, the majority of households are worse off.
Thank you very much for that. How much time do I have left? Perfect. I just want to talk, as my initial round, we talked a little bit about the budget and some of the projections. We talked about the capital gains. Another area that I have concern about the projection is with respect to the government's prediction of saving billions of dollars by reducing the size of the civil service. The civil service has grown since 2015 by over 40%, and now they're telling us that they will begin a plan by saving $1.3 billion in next year's budget by reducing the civil service by attrition. Do you share any of the concerns? Because when I talk to department officials, they never have a plan for reducing the size of their footprint.
I share these concerns because the budget indicates that they'll be reducing the number of FTEs in the public service by 5,000 over 4 years by attrition. But the budget also has a number of measures that will are reasonably expected to require more public servants. So it will either mean that there will be more reductions in certain sectors to make room for this increase in some areas, while also reducing the aggregate size by 5,000, or there will not be any reduction at all.
Yeah, and so we potentially could see greater losses in the civil service, and the other negative outcome that is perhaps likely is the fact that instead of the civil service being reduced in size, they may actually grow. And if that were to happen, if the dollars that are forecasted for reduction, that would put the government off of its fiscal anchor of debt to GDP ratio, would it not?
It would probably absent reductions in other areas to compensate for that. And I'd add that based on historical results where departmental plans indicated a reduction a reduction to come in their overall number of employees, we have seen instead increases. So that's on good. That's what I'm basing my assessment.
So either the government's going to miss its fiscal anchors, or the civil service is going to have even more cuts than are predicted.
It's either cuts to the public service or reductions in other areas if the government is to meet its fiscal targets.
Thank you very much. I'll get there. Mr.
My question is just a clarification. Today's date, when we have all of your analysis done, this secret data that the government was hiding for $25 billion impact on the climate, on the economy, but because of conservatives' pressure, they finally released that it was a $25 billion hit to the Canadian economy and workers at the end of the day. I just wanted to get one clear answer that given all the data, all the secret information that has been finally released, your final conclusion, according to you, still stands, which your final conclusion was that given all the fiscal and economic impacts of the carbon tax scam, a majority of Canadian households are worse off. Can I just get you to confirm that one more time?
The fuel charge and the output-based pricing system, when both are included, yes, that still stands. But
Perfect.
that's it.
Thank you very much. There's another portion to this that the Liberals and the NDP refuse to talk about, and that's the clean fuel regulation, or what it's better known as is carbon tax 2. We know that this will cost, on average, about $573 more. When we look at that $25 billion of this secret data that this government refused to release, does that carbon tax 2, was that factored in when that $25 billion impact on the economy was released to you?
Thank you for the question. The analysis or the estimates that we received from Environment and Climate Change Canada reflected only the impact of carbon pricing in Canada and did not include the economic impact of the clean fuel regulations.
Okay, so in those, just following up on that, does that mean that it would only make things more expensive for Canadians on top of your analysis?
We prepared a report in March, in 2023, I think it was May 2023, using the estimates that that Environment and Climate Change Canada had provided us in terms of the economic impact of the clean fuel regulations.
Just a clear answer, because I have a limited amount of time. Carbon tax 2 or clean fuel standard will only make it more expensive, correct?
According to the estimates that we received, they indicated a negative economic impact and a negative impact on households' income.
Okay, so it make Canadians poorer. And there is no rebate on this carbon tax 2, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So what we can conclude is that when you factor in carbon tax scam 1 and 2, the overall analysis is that a majority of households in Canada will be worse off, correct?
Unfortunately, we haven't prepared that analysis. We've only looked at the separate impacts of carbon pricing and the clean fuel regulations.
Fair enough, but if the conclusion for carbon tax 1 is a majority of Canadians will be worse off, does that not mean that if there's a negative impact with carbon tax 2, that it would lean towards a negative impact overall? Would that be correct?
It's likely correct. However, the precise
and this applies
impact
to every province, correct? Carbon tax 2 without a rebate,
the clean
including
fuel
Quebec
regulations
and
yes,
BC?
That's correct.
That's correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe that there can be some interactions with the provincial regulatory standards as well, so it may not be.
But the overall
fully,
impact would be negative. Can I just get a clear answer on that?
Sorry, I don't recall. I believe in our report we showed what the
Mr. Giroux, you said yes. I just wanted to confirm that overall.
It's very likely yes.
It's very likely yes. Thank you very much. How much time do I have left? 40 seconds. Going back to the capital gains tax hike, one would concur once you talk to Canadians and businesses, especially small businesses, we hear a lot about how this is punishing success. Like I'll give an example of a immigrant who came here, worked their way up to, went from driving a truck, making a paycheck, to eventually buying a truck of his own and creating, success for himself, for his kids and their kids and their kids. In their words, this is punishing their success. Is that accurate for a small business like his, where if he wanted to give his business to the kids or sell it off for their kids' future, he would get less in return?
Very brief answer, please.
Well, it depends on whether it's above or beyond, or above or below the capital gains lifetime capital gains exemption, or the inclusion rate of 50% for the first $250,000. So one would have to look at the specific of that situation.
Just a last quick question.
I'm afraid
Are
we
there
don't
any
have
other
time, Mr.
knock-on
Halan.
effects?
So-